Hey guys, Charlie here. I'm a DJ and music producer, and I'm super excited to introduce you to SQ-ATV, Arturia's detailed recreation of the hybrid crosswave synthesizer famous in the 80s and 90s. In this video, we check out its features, functions, and how it sounds. Let's check it out. SQ-ATV is modeled on the classic Ensoniq SQ80, known for combining digital oscillators with resonant analog filters for a totally unique and edgy sound. With its unique approach to waveform combinations, multiple LFOs, modulation mixer, and 4 advanced envelope generators, this synth puts an organic spin on the digital sound. Thanks to Arturia's advanced modeling technology, this virtual instrument recreates every aspect of the original, right down to the behavior of individual components and features. Let's take a closer look. SQ-ATV's interface is built around 3 sections: the instrument, synthesis, and effects panels. The instrument tab is a 3D representation of SQ-ATV, inspired by the original unit. The central element of the main instrument view is the display, which shows essential sound shaping features like the 3 oscillators and the filter. Each oscillator on the display offers the same controls, allowing you to change its frequency in octaves like this. Semitones like this, as well as in cents. You can also easily control each oscillator's overall volume level, like this. This is useful when looking for a volume balance between all 3 oscillators, allowing you to come up with unique tone changes thanks to the mixing of the waveforms. In this view, you can also select different waveforms for each oscillator using the left and right arrows, so you can change the character of your sound in an instant. SQ-ATV's waveforms combine various types of sound sources, from classic oscillators waveforms to voices, noises, and even acoustic and percussive instruments. It has it all. There are 4 banks of waveforms, and you can access them all via the arrows in the instrument view. While browsing, the visualizer always displays the current waveform. We'll cover the waveform banks in more detail later on. Finally, each oscillator can be enabled or disabled with the dedicated on and off buttons. Next to the oscillators, you'll find the filter section. Here, again, the visualizer always shows the current position of the filter's cut-off resonance controls. The cutoff can be controlled via the horizontal fader, which is below the visualizer, sounding like this. While the resonance is controlled by the vertical fader found on the right side of the visualizer, sounding like this. The built-in filter of SQ-ATV was carefully modeled after its hardware counterpart, the CEM3379 chip, recreating its behavior and sound. More on that in the synthesis part. The remaining elements of the instruments view are the pitch and the modulation wheels found in the bottom left corner. The pitch band's range can be changed from 0 to 12 semitones and can be toggled between all and held modes. While the modulation wheel allows for manual modulation control. Last but not least, the front pedal provides the volume control as well as the arpeggiator module. To enrich the arpeggiator patterns, you can change the pattern's direction. The options are order, reversed, up, down, up down 1, up down 2, and random. You can also sync the arpeggiator to the master tempo with straight time division, triplets, dotted notes, or free running in hertz. The final arpeggiator control allows you to hold the arpeggiator pattern while it's running after you've released the keys. Freeing your hands for other actions. Switching to the synthesis view, you gain hands-on access to SQ80's signal chain and parameters for a modern and streamlined sound design experience. This includes more detailed oscillator controls, the voice section, filter, envelopes, LFOs, and more. On the left, you'll find the digitally controlled oscillator sections. As mentioned before, there are 3 DCOs which are almost identical in their structure. Some of their controls are available on the front panel display. These are the frequency, waveform selection, and volume controls. As mentioned before, we can change each oscillator's frequency by octaves, semitones, and cents. Setting slightly different fine values for each oscillator will cause the sound to be nicely detuned like this. Additionally, we can modulate the semitone parameter thanks to the 2-pitch mod source trimmers. To create the routing, simply click on the chosen source. Then, to add modulation amount, left-click on the trimmer and go up for a positive modulation amount, or down for a negative modulation amount, like this. This will create a colored collar around the modulated control and the modulation amount trimmer to indicate the modulation that you've set up. The same rule applies for every modulation amount trimmer on SQ80V's interface. DCO volume fader is another control that was available in Instrument View. Here, you can also modulate it with 2 independent modulation sources. We can send LFO1 to the mod amount number 1 and LFO2 to mod amount number 2, setting them to positive and negative modulation amounts respectively. Now, when I trigger the keys, these 2 modulators create interesting interwoven volume changes, producing almost rhythmic results. On top of all the common features of all 3 DCOs, the DCO number 2 provides frequency sync option as well as amplitude modulation. The first one, when enabled, will make DCO2 follow the frequency of the DCO1 like this. While the amplitude modulation introduces the modulation of the amplitude of DCO2 coming from the amplitude of the DCO1, like this. Each of SQ80V's oscillators can have an individual waveform assigned, with over 400 waveforms to choose from. Waveforms are organized inside of the browser. Once inside, you are presented with 4 folders, each containing a multiple of waveforms to choose from. Let's listen to a few from each folder. As you can hear, the choice is huge. The first folder contains the original SQ80 waveforms, while the Transwave folder offers waveforms that can be morphed. The last 2 folders contain waveforms that were secretly accessed via hacking of the original hardware unit. What's really cool is that the waveforms found in the second folder can be modulated with the Transwave slider, which changes the starting position of the waveform playback like this. As you hear, the change of the position results in an interesting sonic sweep. And when we attach 1 or 2 modulation sources to it, like this, the results get even more interesting. On top of that, some waveforms available in the last 2 banks are also longer multi-sampled waveforms which are spread throughout the keyboard, so depending on what key you press, you get a different result. Explore these unique waveforms by pressing different keys, or better yet, combine it with the arpeggiator like this. Another major aspect of the SQ-ATV's sound is its filter. This is the carefully modeled analog low-pass filter based on the CEM3379 chip found in the original Ensoniq hardware unit. It comes with 3 controls: the cutoff fader, the resonance fader, and the keyboard tracking, which modulates the filter cutoff based on the notes you're playing. Additionally, we can use the modulation knobs to introduce movement within cutoff and resonance controls. For instance, to modulate the filter with the envelope number 1, simply hover the mouse over the knob, press plus, and pick envelope 1 from the modulation sources list. Then, add the modulation amount by left-clicking and moving the mouse up or down for positive or negative values, like this. We can also use LFO number 1 to modulate the same cutoff control, introducing even more changes to the sound. The same goes for resonance. If you will modulate it with another LFO with fast rate, it will create an interesting wobbling effect, which in combination with cutoff modulation can sound really nice. At the heart of the sound-shaping capabilities of SQ-ATV's sound engine are the 4 powerful multimode envelopes. These are identical in their structure and share similar functionalities. The one difference between them is that the envelope number 4 is hardwired to the DCA, controlling the overall volume of the instrument, like this. Other than that, these are all freely assignable and are available to be used as modulation sources with no limits. Each envelope offers 3 different modes: SQ-AT mode, which is from the original, the MSEG, which is the multi-segment envelope mode, and the classic ADSR mode, with additional delay stage at the beginning. What's cool about the original SQ-AT envelope is that its stages can be set to negative values. To set various stages values, simply drag and drop the pointers or use the controls below the envelope visualizer. For example, if we set the stage 2 to a negative value, it means that after triggering the key during the full cycle, the sound will go silent for a moment at stage 2 and then come back to volume levels of remaining stages, producing a really nice effect. Next up, the rich velocity controls. Here, we can define the velocity of the attack stage, meaning that the stronger the velocity value, the shorter the attack time, and vice versa, allowing for maximum expressivity. Here's how it sounds. Velocity curve itself can be changed too, from linear to exponential, and we can also define how much the envelope will respond to the velocity of our playing. Lastly here, keyboard decay scaling will change the decay level time depending on the key. The higher the note, the shorter the decay time will be. The multi-segment envelope is also very interesting. Its key characteristic is that it allows you to produce up to 16 envelope stages by drawing the points with the mouse on the visualizer. To draw an envelope point, simply left-click with the mouse. You can also move the change position of each point by dragging it and also change the curves between various points like this. Now, when you're ready with your shape, simply send the MSEG envelope signal towards a destination such as the oscillator's waveform shape and start modulating it. What's really great in the MSEG envelope is that it also offers control over the speed of its cycles via the rate control. You can either set it to Hertz to run freely or sync it with the master tempo of your DAW with straight time divisions, triplets or dotted notes. More than that, this envelope can also loop. Enabling it will allow you to set loop regions between various points like this. Another fun aspect of it is that you can define the speed cycle by the MIDI note information. Increase the key time control to do that. Lower note values will produce slower cycles, while the higher notes will produce faster cycles, like this. You can also decide if the envelope will be responsive to the velocity controls, as well as use various shape presets to get creative with your modulations. Finally, the MSEG envelope can be used in bipolar mode, meaning that it will affect the modulated parameter above and below its current value. The remaining envelope is the DADSR envelope. This one is a classic 4-stage envelope with the additional delay stage at the beginning, as well as key time and velocity controls. You can change the particular stages either via points on the visualizer or the 5 controls below it. The DCA4 module controls the volume and panning of SQ-ATV's overall voice, but also introduces distortion when the level of the oscillators is overdriving its input stage. The nonlinear behavior of the DCA is carefully modeled to reproduce its effect on the sound, whether it is driven gently or strongly. The red LED shows us the current level of clipping. You can also modulate the DCA4 controls with 2 modulation amount knobs available. For example, we can easily send an LFO signal to the panning control to shape the stereo image, shifting the voices across the right and left channels with either slow or fast rates. To the right of the envelope module, we will find SQ-ATV's 3 powerful LFOs, each with 5 shapes to choose from and an identical set of functions. The LFO rates can be either set to Hertz or master tempo, while the amp level defines the LFO's amplitude, and the delay defines how much time it will take for the amplitude to achieve its full level. If we set the delay to a smaller value, we will hear how the delay stage is introduced. The reset button defines if the LFO waveform returns to the beginning of its cycle each time a new key is struck, while the human control adds randomness to the LFO frequency for a more organic feel. The poly button changes the LFO from monophonic to polyphonic, allowing for interesting sonic results where each key triggers its own individual LFO cycle, sounding like this. Arturia also added a new modulation mixer to SQ-ATV, which lets you combine 2 modulation sources. We could, for example, combine 2 LFOs together. LFO1 with a slowly cycling sine wave, which is not synced to the tempo, and LFO3 with a faster triangle waveform set to 1/4 time division. Now, we can easily modulate the filter cutoff to hear the results. The mod mixer visualizer displays the change in the waveform signal, showing us the detail of its shape. To push it even further, we can change the way the 2 sources interact. Alongside the default multiply mode, the options are differentiation, division, leg, crossfade, awesome. Lastly, there's the amount knob, which will define the intensity of the interaction of the two sources. If set to 0, the output will only function with the source number 1. The final section in the Synthesis tab showcases the keyboard modulators, including velocity and aftertouch. When you hover over them with your mouse, you'll see their targeted parameters highlighted with colors. Now we arrive at SQ-ATV's Effects tab, where you find plenty of amazing spatial, dynamic and modulation effects. You can use up to 4 effects at once, with detailed control over each effect's features. You can also decide if the signal will flow in parallel or serial, changing the tone and character of the chain. Let's hear a few effects in action and listen to how they transform our presets. Here's the preset Drive. And now with effects on. Finally, let's take a look at the unique voice dispersion module, designed to replicate the variations in imperfections in signals. It can affect 3 parameters: filter cutoff, filter resonance, and the DCA. The dispersion of the filter or DCA within each voice makes the sound a bit more interesting, authentic, and raw. And that's it. Hopefully this tutorial gave you an insight into SQ-ATV's unique and powerful hybrid sound. If you want to see more great content from software tutorials to artist stories, subscribe to Arturia's channel below and don't forget to leave a like. See you next time!